Chelsea Football Club are set to make a further bid for ROMELU LUKAku. An offer with a combined total of around 100 million euros yesterday evening was rejected. This is reported as being the third bid, or at least the third attempt from Chelsea Football Club to bring Lukaku back to the Premier League and back to Stamford Bridge. Now, what we were informed, and we're going to delve into in more detail today on the Done Deal show with the brilliant Dean Jones, is the fact that Roman Abramovich has been personally driving this transfer forward. Manchester City, a short while back, made a better personal offer to Lukaku than Chelsea originally did. That has now been responded to and improved. Chelsea have improved their personal offer and are willing to pay Lukaku over £13 million per year to return to the Premier League. This transfer hangs in the balance. Some believe it's a smokescreen. Others believe it's futile. It isn't going to go anywhere. Inter are not willing to sell. Lukaku is happy and doesn't want to leave. But Chelsea are renowned for being smart in the transfer market. They don't chase players. They don't chase players that they cannot land. I want your thoughts and I want your feelings on this deal. What do you believe is going to happen? And going across to North London, the Tottenham situation with Harry Kane is very interesting indeed. Tottenham are standing their ground. Tottenham have stated that they are not willing to sell Harry Kane this summer. Manchester City is becoming very public now, are willing to pay up to £130 million for the England striker. They are close, according to some reports, to securing a £100 million move for Jack Grealish, but of course informed James Ducker at the Telegraph yesterday that they are confident they can land both of the individuals. Now, Harry Kane, of course, didn't arrive at training yesterday. This caused a huge flurry across the internet and across news networks. It transpires, and Dean Jones brought this information to me exclusively yesterday, and we'll be delving into it more throughout the duration of the show, that Harry Kane expected Levy to have resolved the situation by now. He believed that he would be able to get his move away based on internal conversations over the past 12 to 18 months. Harry Kane has already said goodbye to his teammates and staff at Tottenham. Harry Kane had already informed them that he believed he was leaving. He said his goodbyes. He didn't expect to be returning back to training at this moment in time. The saga continues. Dean Jones and I are here for the next hour or so. Make sure you smash that like button. Updates on Arsenal's midfield, Jack Grealish updates, Man United's transfer pursuits, and much, much more. Get your comments in now. Smash that like button. Here we go. Good morning, one and all. I'm joined by Dean. How are you, mate?
Hello, mate. I'm good. Yesterday was busy, so that kept me on my toes.
An exciting day yesterday. It really, really was. So much going on. And
felt like deadline day.
I know it did. It did feel a bit like that yesterday. I think it was that delay, wasn't it? To the delay with the Euros and everything else surrounding it just really like hammered home yesterday. It was absolutely enthralling day in the transfer market, and it's why I love transfers. There was a great moment last night around between 9 and 10 o'clock, away from the Lukaku news. There's all these reports of Jack Grealish rejecting Man City, and then Sam Lee comes out and says no, it's all on track, and I'm loving it. You had the Journo Awards yesterday. You had Fabrizio's fan club versus Matt Law's fan club, and the irony was Matt Law didn't say that Chelsea would sign Lukaku. They just said they're going to go in for him, and everyone's, no, they won't. Then the bids happened, and it's still, I'm seeing people in the comments, yeah, but Fabrizio says he's not leaving, so why are they going for him? We're going to delve into all of that today. This isn't about belittling anybody's stories. It's about presenting the information, facts, giving you the chance, viewers, to have your say on said matters. We had a few early super chats that I don't want to miss because they came in very, very early that I want to read out here first of all. The first one was from Monser Ahmed, who said here, he said, "Good morning, Terry and Dean, ready with a bowl of Rice Krispies and a cup of tea to watch the fire show. Smash the like button, people. Absolutely make sure that like button's being smashed." Comment here from Paul says, Romo, get your bold ass away from my club. Oh, ROMELU, like he means, from my club. We've already got a no-scoring disease with Morata just got rid of Morata last season. We don't need you back here as well. I'll take Chewbacca instead. At least he can shoot. Is what Paul Ross doesn't seem happy with these Lukaku links. It's the weirdest super chat I've ever had. But Paul Ross is not happy. Why are you not happy, Paul? Let us know. There's another one here actually just come in as well. I don't want to miss. It says here, Romo, as he's calling him, is such a downgrade, Terry. Would you take him back to United?
But I don't downgrade on what? A downgrade on what? Like, they haven't got anyone they currently haven't got anyone of that level of Romelu Lukaku. And if you're saying a downgrade on Erling Haaland, then I'm not sure you're right, to be honest. I think Lukaku's proven himself. Not even once. He's probably proven himself twice, maybe 3 times. Lukaku is one of the best strikers in European football. He is so hungry to prove that again and again and again. And right now, he's on a mission to prove that he is in that bracket of Harry Kane and Lewandowski and Haaland. And he does it. Like, I don't know if these guys are watching enough Italian football, because if you watch Lukaku last season, he was absolutely different class. At the Euros, every time he got the ball, it looked like he was going to score inside the box. Personally, I think it'll be an amazing signing for Chelsea.
I certainly think it'll be a good signing for Chelsea. I understand the desire and the want and the need to. I know why one wants Haaland, because of this ceiling that he's got, this huge level that he possesses within him. But at the same time, it was always going to be a very difficult deal to get done. But we'll touch on that a little bit later. The Lukaku situation is interesting. We will be covering Harry Kane later, plus other stories as well. So stay with the Football Terrace. Make sure like buttons have been hit. Strap yourselves in. So with Lukaku, I know we spoke about it yesterday. What's the latest as far as you're aware with this story? We know there was a rejected bid that went in last night that's been confirmed by quite a number of sources, especially out of Italy. What's your understanding with Chelsea's pursuit of the Belgian striker?
Yes, a couple of months ago, Chelsea started to make contact with Romelu Lukaku. It was been driven by Roman Abramovich, who is a big admirer of the player, and he could see that need for a number 9, and he wanted Lukaku back at the club. Now, he was also more than open to Haaland and loves him as well. But the fact that he was so behind Lukaku has meant that those discussions have always been ongoing. Now, I think we did it on the show here when I first came on, that when Chelsea first touched base with Lukaku about what they'd be offering and stuff like that, Man City were kind of in the conversation as well, and they'd actually offered more money to Lukaku in terms of an initial financial payment, what his wages would be, and so on. And so, Chelsea weren't really in that same ballpark. Since then, things have changed, and over the past couple of months, Chelsea have increased their offer. Chelsea are willing to now pay Romelu Lukaku not just more than he was on at Inter, but more than he was on at Man United. He took a pay cut to go to Inter Milan. At United, he was on around 200 grand a week. He'll be getting more than that if he goes to Chelsea. Probably closer to 250 grand a week, to be honest, from what I'm told. This is advancing. This story is moving all the time. Yesterday, I took so many calls on it because suddenly it became a live story. And when you're a journalist and you're chasing things can be slow, and you're trying to get things out of people sometimes that aren't even really there. And then what happens is there's a day like yesterday, and it started in the morning, just messaging a couple of people, and it just became clear that people were being a bit more open about this situation. And then by the end of the day, you've got talks of bids and all sorts. So that tells you everything you need to know, really. I mean, people in London that know Lukaku and like Lukaku a lot are very excited. They are starting to believe that Lukaku is coming back to London, where he spent a lot of time when he was in England and with his friends and so on and so forth. Thomas Tuchel, this is important as well, is really keen on Romelu Lukaku. I know that Lukaku has been made aware of that, and Lukaku is in no doubt that if he joins Chelsea, It's because everybody there wants him to be there. Yes, he's happy in Milan. Yes, I've seen the photo of him talking about how happy he is. There's no doubt about that. That doesn't mean he's not going to leave. And with the terms that are on offer to him, if there's a bid that comes in that's big enough to Inter Milan, who are financially struggling right now, is the one player they really don't want to lose. But at the right price, they will lose him. Look, it's moving fast. The fee needs to be agreed. But it seems little doubt to me at the moment that Chelsea are very, very serious about getting this deal done, and are starting to believe that Lukaku will be their new number 9.
And what's very interesting, thank you very much, by the way, there to Stu Buck, who says, get Lukaku, hand Haaland to United. Don't do it. Listen, we'll touch on Haaland a little bit later on in the show. I think what's really interesting is there is journalistic wars going on here, and I sort of joked about it earlier. Of course, a lot of the Italian contingent are adamant that Inter Milan are not going to sell Lukaku. Lukaku has said that he's happy, and I understand all of that, and I don't think anybody's denying these things have not been said. But yeah, I just can't help but think Chelsea Football Club are not stupid. I just can't imagine Chelsea and Roman and Marina chasing Lukaku, getting this even to a point where Inter say yes, and then Lukaku just laughs and says, "But I told you I'm not interested." Do you get where I'm coming from? That just doesn't. I know some fans don't want this to be true, but Chelsea are doing this right now. They are actively pursuing this, and it's coming from all directions. What's your gut feeling telling you, Dean, around, with everything that's going on? Do you feel that Lukaku, if a bid gets accepted by Inter, do you think Lukaku's mind will change?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I think Lukaku will go to Chelsea. If there's a bid that goes in and Inter Milan accept it, then I think Lukaku starts to change his mindset and starts to prepare for a season in the Premier League. I've spoken to a lot of people on this over the last couple of days, and some of them really close to him, and there seems a lot of excitement around it. If it doesn't happen, he's completely fine with it. He's happy at Inter Milan. He'll go into Serie A again and score another 30 goals next season. That's not a problem to him. But if Inter are willing to cash in on him, then he'll go. It's as simple as that. Like, he's open to this move to Chelsea, and there's always been talk of the fact that he's got a desire to go back there and prove himself. I remember, actually, I was at a press conference when he first signed for Chelsea. It's a long time ago now. He was a teenager, and he just never got that opportunity to show what he could do. He was young. Just the way the club was being managed and run back then meant he wouldn't get the opportunities. He was loaned out, did well in different places. I see somebody there, by the way, saying Lukaku has an ego. No, he doesn't. I spent time with Lukaku. So I used to work at Bleacher Report. As part of my job at BR Football, we'd go on set and go out to shoots with players and stuff. At one point, I spent a lot of time with Lukaku on a project we were doing, and he's not got an ego. This man, he's so humble. He works so hard. There's not many people in football that I want to be more successful than I want Romelu Lukaku to be successful, because people are ridiculously hard on him. He has people judging him on stuff that's so unfair. I think that personally, Lukaku, if he does come to Chelsea, he's going to have so much hunger and desire to prove people wrong that he will go and do it. He will live up to everything I think he can. He'll be there, and he'll prove a lot of people wrong. And I'm amazed, really, at Chelsea fans that are down on this move, because if you can't get Erling Haaland right now, which seems to be the case, who else would you want? Who do you want? Like, I don't understand what you said.
We had this conversation last night, mate, and I'm in the same like breath, really. I feel I understand Haaland being your number one, but it's not as though it's not like I was meant to be going to see Michael Jackson in concert, and now I'm going to see Peter Andre. You're going to see Prince, or you're going to see somebody else that's also amazing. You're not downgrading as such. There is still seeing like one of the leading strikers in world football come to your club who's going to score. And as Slen's also said here, he says, look, there's absolutely nothing wrong with an ego in football either, by the way, in terms of that whether you want to call it arrogance, ego, or confidence that you can go and deliver, you can prove people wrong. I think that's a very healthy thing. This is an interesting comment. Manish says, oh, that's what BR football stands for. He obviously didn't know that it stands for Bleacher Report. It's just that made me laugh. But yes, that's what it stands for. Paul Ross here again comes back and says he has to prove in the Premier League he ain't the same player coming back to the Premier League that he was when he was at United. That's my worry.
United didn't manage him well enough, and there was the whole thing about his diet, about this. There was so many things that have changed for Lukaku since he was at United. And look, I don't know how many people watch Serie A, but it's part of my job. I have to, and I've seen a lot of Lukaku at Inter, and he is not the same player that you were seeing at Man United, and he won't be the player that you saw at Man United if he does join Chelsea. It's very different. Times have changed. He's moved on. He's got his confidence back, which is so important. And, there'll be the same things about his touch and his work rate and all this rubbish. And, give the guy a chance if he does come back, Chelsea fans, because honestly, like, you get behind him and he starts scoring, then sky's the limit.
I hear you on that. Comment here from SJ says people that don't want Lukaku are just dense, is what he's saying there. That's his comments. David here, who's one of our panelists on the Football Terrace and members, says Havertz is a better option than Lukaku.
I mean, Havertz is a totally different footballer to Lukaku, and he's a great option. And I think that, the Werner Havertz combination is something brilliant for Chelsea. And I personally think Havertz will come into the conversation for a Ballon d'Or once Messi and Ronaldo are finished battling for it, and over the next 10 years, I think you'll see him stay at this level. But Havertz is nothing like Lukaku, and I think he would only complement Lukaku with the way that he plays.
I totally agree. In terms of the fee, just before we move on to Harry Kane, what do you imagine the fee for Lukaku having to be for Inter Milan to accept? So it looks like they've turned down something in the region of 100 million euros. How much more do you think Chelsea are willing to pay to get this deal done?
Yeah, I mean, there's genuinely no briefings on this right now, because the Italian guys that are reporting this aren't wrong. He's not for sale. Inter Milan are very clear that, like, Lukaku's the one player they don't want to lose this year. But as someone else said to me, another agent, the place is a mess right now, and if you can get in this money. Say they end up getting, someone says they're 110 million pounds. Say, take that for example. I can't see them turning that down. And it's still cheaper than you'd have got Haaland for. It's still a reasonable deal. Like, if you see Jack Grealish has been talked about as a 100 million pound footballer, then Lukaku's easily worth that same kind of,
that money.
That kind of area. So I think around there is fair. I can't see it being much more than that, to be honest. Let's see the negotiation. I mean, obviously they're trying to throw players in there to try and use as make weights, but it's always tough to do that. I've heard that various times with people, even Chelsea, when they tried to sign Hakimi, were trying to put players into the deal there. It didn't work out for them, even though Inter were really, happy initially with the discussions that were happening around that. They didn't go on it. They didn't buy it. And Lautaro Martinez as well. You think of discussions with Arsenal and talk about Bellerin going the other way, and so far into not biting on that. So putting Marcos Alonso into the equation isn't necessarily going to be something they bite on, because they need money, not players right now.
Absolutely. There we go, ladies and gentlemen. Comprehensive update there on Lukaku. We are going to talk more about Chelsea a little bit later on the show, but obviously it's big breaking news. The other huge story at the moment, Mr. Kane, a certain Mr. Kane, who, as someone said yesterday, I saw a tweet, made me laugh. It said Harry Kane did yesterday what he does in all major finals. He didn't turn up. And I just thought
I like it.
Yeah, it was good. He didn't turn up to training yesterday. And of course, there was a big media frenzy and everything else surrounding it. The lot going on. Some of this stuff happened months ago, and it's led to this situation. Dean, give us the update on the current situation with Harry Kane, please.
Yes, I mean, it didn't really come as a huge surprise to a lot of people at the club that he didn't show up yesterday. I mean, from what I understand and what I'm told, Harry Kane said his goodbyes at the end of last season. Players and staff at Tottenham were left in little doubt that he was not expecting to return to the club for this season. Since then, things haven't really opened up for Harry Kane as he would have hoped or have expected them to. There was the Gary Neville interview. There was the Sun story. There was this training ground, I don't know, strike, if you want to call it, by not turning up on Monday. Those three things have done little to convince Daniel Levy that he is going to now sell Harry Kane. And in fact, it's the opposite. So from Harry Kane being in that position, final day of last season, thinking, right, that's my last game for Tottenham. Now we move on. Now I get some trophies. Hasn't opened up as he'd have thought. And there's been some decisions and some situations that might turn out to be regrettable. Spurs players know that his head is now elsewhere. From what I'm told, no one was really expecting him to turn up on Monday. I thought the club might play it down and say he wasn't expected back until next week, because there had been some murmurs leading up to Monday that might be the case, but they haven't done that so far. And Harry Kane now finds himself in a weird situation where he's going to be fined because he hasn't turned up. And him and his brother Charlie have to really figure out how they approach this. They've obviously got to now go in for talks about what happens next. Ultimately, Harry Kane just hasn't had that money land from Man City that he needed. There was £100 million in June, not seen as enough by Levy. We all knew that. I mean, Kane might have intimated in his interview with Neville that he felt £100 million was good value for him. That's because he knew Man City were going to offer £100 million. City have now got to come up with a follow-up offer, and they've got to do it reasonably quick. And to be honest, they haven't done it quick enough to help Kane out of this situation whereby he hasn't turned up for his first day. We'll have to see how this turns out. But to be honest, it's not looking great for Harry Kane right now.
Yeah, it's a very interesting situation. I mean, in terms of the things that I've read about it, and of course, I know we spoke yesterday. Honestly, sitting on my hands on all that information yesterday that you gave me was the hardest day of my life. I was like, I'm so struggling to not say that. I don't want to be disrespectful. It's your news. The fact that he said goodbye, the fact that he, went up to, I don't know what staff members, but went up to the, to the people that have made the tea and have washed these kits for the past 10 years or whatnot, and given them a hug and said, look, I don't think I'm going to be back. You can understand now why he's getting frustrated, and maybe some of that frustration is also at Manchester City for not coming in with an acceptable offer. City reported yesterday into James Ducko, who's very credible. The Manchester Evening News spoke about how they're confident they will be able to land both Jack Grealish and Harry Kane. Do you expect Man City to come in with, a bigger and more improved bid between now and the end of the window? And will Harry Kane return to training soon?
Yeah, I don't know if he'll return to training, but there will be another bid. Whether it's enough, I'm not convinced, to be honest. The problem they've got here, I know we've talked in the past about how financial fair play is relaxed and so on, and it helps them do these deals, but they can only go so far. They can't just pay £180 million and keep going £200 million, 220. Like there's still going to be a limit to it, and they're still going to have to answer questions in the future about like the financials involved in deals like this. So they still have to be careful about how far they can push things. Look, if they go and spend 100 million on Grealish and go and offer 130 for Kane, that's far beyond anything they've done on two players before. So to go in beyond 130, I'd be very surprised, to be honest. Like 140 maybe, but like 160, I just haven't seen that coming. If you go back to like the story leaks and stuff like that, I think what it's come from is the fact that Man City had privately started to talk about how this deal could be structured, what potentials could go into it. And it just hadn't gone far. There was no agreement. There was no offer. And suddenly it's a front page of a British tabloid. And, it's no surprise that Tottenham's immediate reaction to that is that that's a leak from Harry Kane's camp, because how are they getting hold of this information? Like, what even is it? Like, we haven't done this deal. He's not going for £160 million. No one's given us that money. Yeah. So things like that haven't helped. And talk of a gentleman's agreement as well don't really work when you're talking about 150 million pound footballers and Daniel Levy. Like,
Yeah.
it's not really. I don't know what business would do a gentleman's agreement on that kind of money, but I'd say that they should probably change the way they deal anyway, because it's not a great idea making things like that a year in advance, is it?
No, it really isn't. Jen's here with a comment says, how important is it for Kane to maintain his good PR image, being England captain? I mean, there was a lot of fury yesterday, and I understand where it comes from around if it had been someone like Paul Pogba that behaved this way, there would be outrage. And some people have been outraged. I think Jamie Carragher was incensed with it and annoyed that he did it. I'm the other end of the spectrum. I think Harry Kane's doing the absolute right thing, because he should not waste his career at Tottenham. He shouldn't. And clubs have no loyalty to players. What about poor old Eric Lamela? He didn't want to leave the Premier League and take a pay cut, but yet he was forced to because Spurs didn't want him anymore. So in terms of Harry Kane, do you think he cares about certain sections of the media or the footballing world thinking he's a bad guy for trying to force his move?
No, I mean, the thing is, like, this situation can quickly be addressed when it's all dealt with, and we get to talk to Harry Kane and you hear his side of the story. He will tell you, like I told you a minute ago, to be honest, that this situation about him returning to training was quite fluid, and that he'll say that he didn't think it was a strict deadline for him to show up on the Monday, and he can get around that and say, I finished on this day. I thought, we technically can have this much time to return back into training. I think I even said it on here that I didn't expect Kane back until the 8th, the week leading up into the season. And there was been, a couple of reports in the Telegraph and stuff about how Kane wouldn't be ready for the new season anyway. So I really don't think that there has been that much surprise internally about this situation. In terms of Kane's PR, I do think it's being damaged a little bit here, and I think he has got to be a bit careful. I also think that when your brother is your agent, you're in a tricky situation there, because it's not like you've got a super agent dealing with you and you can throw everything off on them and they'll take all the heat, right? And everyone will blame Raiola or Mendes or Jonathan Barnett or whoever it is, and they'll say, oh, they're doing it again, like the players just going along with it. Like, because this is a family thing, Tottenham fans will take it even more to heart, because these guys have been so ingrained in Tottenham Football Club, and they're building up to a new season with a new manager and trying to get going again, and their poster boy is seen to be acting in a way that is going to hold them back, and that's not going to help him. I'm not saying that Tottenham fans would boo him if he had to stay with them and start the season, and it would probably all get swept under the carpet. But it's a strange one, because we haven't seen this from Harry Kane before, and he really is the ultimate professional in terms of every other aspect of what we've seen from him before, and the way that he's gone out on loan, in the way that he's become England captain, become Tottenham captain, stayed with the club before, signed contracts. Like, he's been a loyal player to Tottenham. And on the flip of that, Tottenham have helped him massively as well by giving him the opportunity to come through from the academy, and after his loan spells, give him that first team opportunity. But players at some point want to move on, and I guess they will feel they've got the right to do that, even if they have signed a 6-year contract.
And this is where it becomes really interesting, because you're right. Like, he has been a model professional, and to a point where it's actually annoyed people a lot of the time. So why is there never a scandal about him? It's because he's quite boring, really. But and I don't mean it in a horrible way. He just doesn't strike me as the kind of person that you're going to see drunk at 4 o'clock in a nightclub. Even if he wasn't a footballer, I don't think he'd be doing that. He just doesn't seem. He's that kind of guy who's 21. He's home with the missus and he's got his slippers on at 9 o'clock on a Friday night watching. That's how he sounds to me. But it does work in reverse as well. He may feel, I've been this loyal, I've worked this hard, I've been told that they'll let me go next year if an offer over a certain amount comes, and now you're going back on your word for whatever reason. Therefore, my reaction is one of, well, you're showing me, and maybe we'll see some of this come out, as you state, with some interviews in the coming weeks. Maria Williams here says, it doesn't matter. He's under contract. He can't just not turn up. It's not acceptable, especially to fans who have been understanding about him leaving. Maria Williams, of course, is a one of our biggest Spurs fans here on the Football Terrace. And I totally get the frustration from a fan's point of view. What I always like about it, though, Dean, is this. If this was if Spurs were trying to sign a player they massively wanted, and he was doing this to get away, that they wouldn't have this. The reaction would be, "Go on, son, go on, mate, push yourself." That's what I love about us as fans. It depends on what side of the fence you're sitting on.
I'm a Fulham fan. I've seen about 3 or 4 of my favourite Fulham players go and sign for Tottenham, and I've been angry about that in the past. So I understand it, and we all understand it as fans. And this is. Right, it just plays on your emotions massively because a Tottenham fan will still love Harry Kane, of course, and like you remember all the memories and the great goals he's given you and the great moments, and then you see them behave like this, and it hurts you because you take it so personally. I've been like that in the past. Like I remember Louis Saha joining Man United when I was younger.
Scored in his debut.
I was gutted. I remember Chris Coleman telling me in a press conference, he'll leave here over my dead body. 2 weeks later, there it was at Man United, and Chris Coleman's still alive. So
it's the way. Like, I've been there and done it. Like it's one of them things when players force moves, you get excited, and when they do it against you, it's upsetting. I mean, even with Spurs. Spurs fans weren't upset with the way Poch just suddenly left Southampton after only being a year or two into his contract, but there we go. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure that like button has been hit this morning. Please smash that right now. Please subscribe to the Football Terrace and turn on the bell notifications. Also pinned in the live chat function is our brand new notification group chat. Please go and sign up to that now. It's free of charge. You won't get any spam. We only notify you when streams go live. It's via Telegram, so it's a big group of people in there already. So get yourselves into that right now so you never miss another Football Terrace stream. We are talking Haaland a little bit later on in the show. We're going to cover off Man United's current situation with their midfielders. We're going to delve into Arsenal as well with Martinez and Xhaka. Look, he's like signing a new deal. What's that going to mean for the midfield area and all of that jazz? But before that, I want to talk about Jack Grealish because we know a £100 million offer has gone in. We had the likes of Fabrizio tell us a day or so ago that within hours we could get an update on this. That now seems slightly delayed. Sam Lee from The Athletic believes it's all on track. I was speaking to a few people last week that said, it's advanced and it's moving forward quickly. What is the latest with Jack Grealish and his potential move to Man City?
Yeah, I mean, as we said on here as well before, like he was just waiting for this offer. Jack Grealish has again been loyal to Aston Villa. The reports of like £100 million release clause, I think, have caught quite a few people by surprise. I think that must have been inserted when he signed his last contract and quietly sneaked that in there, which has obviously changed things. And it means that Man City would have been aware of exactly where they needed to be in order to get Villa to cave in, basically. Villa haven't wanted to cave in, but that's a lot of money for Jack Grealish. And of course, the player is interested in this. Said before, like I remain 95% convinced that Jack Grealish is going to join Man City. Aston Villa have tried. Of course they have. But, I mean, you'd have to ask questions too about Jack Grealish if he was to turn this down. I mean, why would you stay just take away like the emotion for a moment of how much he loves Aston Villa. You're a professional in your trade and you get the opportunity to join the best company in any business. You got to offer great money, but more than that, you can literally achieve everything you would want to. That's what Jack Grealish can do here at Man City, and that's not going to happen at Aston Villa. He's not going to probably won't even be in the Champions League, let alone trying to win it, and he's not going to be winning the Premier League. And that's what Grealish can go and do now. And as a footballer, you never know what's around the corner. You don't know if this opportunity is going to come again. You don't know if you'll get an injury, and that's why I think Grealish just could not turn down this opportunity. Everyone I've really spoken to thinks Grealish will go, but he's doing the right things. Like Grealish he's going to training and he's being seen to. He'll still leave Villa with a great relationship with everybody there. I'm sure a few fans will be frustrated and upset, just like the Spurs fans are feeling right now about Harry Kane. But ultimately, like, it's hard for Jack Grealish to not be enticed by the idea of joining up for Man City, especially when Pep Guardiola is so keen on it himself, and the idea that he can make Grealish an even better footballer, make him more versatile, just up his game by like 20%, and Grealish could literally become one of the best in his position in the world.
There we go. Another story that a lot of people are asking about is one I was told yesterday was very, very close. Christian Romero to Tottenham. Any information in relation to when that's looking like it's going to close? Is that as close as people are making out?
Well, I've just seen actually as we're talking that my phone's flashing with Romero updates, so I haven't actually read any of them, but it looks like it's come even closer, even just while we've been talking right now. There hasn't really been much doubt that one was getting close, so I presume that is exactly what's happening here. Just trying to open it up as I'm talking to you, but yeah, I haven't. Obviously, I've been on here this morning, but yeah, I mean, Fabrizio saying matter of time now, deal at final stages, and that's the same thing. But imagine what Atalanta fans are feeling like. That's the same thing from their point of view of losing a player that's that good to Tottenham, because they'll be like, "Why are you joining Tottenham, mate? Why don't you wait for something else? Like, why don't you stay with us for a bit?" Atalanta are a brilliant football team, like one of the most entertaining teams in Europe.
I've read he's been pushing and forcing the move. So what Maria Williams, I love and respect you. But I want to see your outrage, please. I want to see your outrage for the disrespect he's going to the club that gave him his chance. This is the thing. Football, you know, one of the things my dad taught me about football when I was younger, he just said, remember, all football fans are the most fickle people, fickle people in the world, in relation to that. Haaland news coming a little bit later, ladies and gentlemen, so stay with us. A Haaland update coming a little bit later, so stay with the terrace. I want to delve into Arsenal a little bit. We spoke about Spurs. Arsenal, of course, heavily linked at the back end of last week. Peter O'Rourke spoke to us about it in terms of pursuing this deal for Martinez. That was the real... Do you know what's interesting, actually? You stated on last week's show the situation with Lukaku. In the space of the next 2 weeks, we're going to get a resolution. We're heading towards the end of that 2 weeks. It's as if Dean, we're going to have to start calling you the Oracle, Dean, I think. I just think that's going to have to start coming. But the Martinez news, what really pricked my ears was this notion that Inter Milan were willing to sell in an attempt to stop Lukaku from leaving. So that was almost, my thought was, well, why would that even be a statement that Inter briefed the media with if Lukaku isn't leaving? It didn't make sense. Those two things contradicted one another. So in terms of Arsenal's, first of all, their pursuit of Martinez, is this something that has progressed further over the course of the last sort of 4 or 5 days? Lukaku leaving surely would end it. What's the latest around that as far as you're aware?
I spoke to someone involved in the deal yesterday, and they just said the clubs are still talking. This is a deal that's there to be done. Obviously, by saying that this deal is there to be done means that Arsenal have to meet the valuation, and that's where the big sticking point is, really. They're looking at 80 million euros, which is about 65 million pound, which seems fine on its own. But then you throw in the fact, like you say, Pete was talking about James Maddison last week, and what he's going to cost, which is around 70. And that doesn't quite fit in with the budgets that we've been told about for Arsenal in the past. Doesn't mean it's going to be impossible, but it just raises doubt about whether those two things can go hand in hand. Now, Lautaro, look, I had reservations about this from the start, because my initial thought, like most people on here, would be, why would Lautaro Martinez, who's just won Serie A with Inter Milan, is one of the best young forwards in the game, go and join Arsenal right now? So I've asked that question, and basically he wants to come to the Premier League first of all, and he sees Arsenal, if that's the club, to be a place where he can grow. And if he does do well at Arsenal, who knows where that will lead for him next? At the moment, the reason that Arsenal are in pole position for him is because they basically have a free run at him. There hasn't been any other contact with other clubs for Lautaro Martinez. And look, personally, I think Lautaro Martinez should be playing at Man City or somewhere. Like, he's so good. But those clubs aren't in for him at the moment. It's not to say they won't come in, but there hasn't been anything so far. And that's why they're able to continue these conversations. It's a really interesting story, I think, and one that, when you consider the players that Arsenal have been looking at this summer, whether it's Alex Isak, whether it's Odsonne Edouard, Andre Silva, Tammy Abraham, Yeah, they're all different types of forward generally, but like Isak, Edouard, Tammy Abraham are like proper like instinctive scorers as well, or like the same type of player. Whereas Lautaro's got probably a bit more guile to him, and a different build. But I think Lautaro is one of the best young footballers in Europe, and it would be an unbelievable signing if they could get it done. Let's see what happens though, because as I say, there's those two positions. Creative midfielder and a forward, and they've almost got the easy business done. They've got the Kongas, and they've got Ben White, and still trying with Ramsdale. That's all fine, but that's not the stuff that gets people excited, and that's not the stuff that defines your season. The stuff that defines your season is whether you get a Martinez, is whether you can get a James Maddison, or whether you just settle and just take maybe one of those players. We'll have to see. But I think Arsenal's going to be one of the most exciting clubs to watch over the next few weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's an interesting update because a lot of Arsenal fans don't want to believe it's even possible. So what I've just heard from yourself there is possible between the clubs. Lautaro Martinez would join the Premier League. Sounds like this is in Arsenal's hands here. Bid the right money and make the right personal offers to the player, and they could land themselves one of the most talented up and coming attackers in the world. This is on, for me, this sounds like it's on the Cronkies now. It's the players willing to join, Inter are willing to do the business. The flip side to this, I know we spoke about him earlier, if Arsenal tomorrow, I'm just throwing out this out there as an example, landed Martinez, would that scupper Chelsea's pursuit of Lukaku? And is that why, because this Arsenal deal is advancing, it obviously sounds like they're in really deep talks, is that why Chelsea are pushing hard right now to try and get Lukaku done? Or could they both happen, do you feel?
I mean, look, Inter Milan fans will be like, what is going on here? Lukaku and Martinez, like Lula, as they call them, as a partnership, like they've just won Serie A with Inter Milan, and they were brilliant. And you'd be like, how can this even be a thing that these two guys can go? So it does seem very unlikely that you would let both of those players go. From Martinez's side, I was told at the end of last week that Lukaku was the one player that seemed unavailable for transfer in this window, which you kind of would expect. He is the star. He produced all the moments that did define their season. But again, it doesn't mean it's impossible. And the two things are going hand in hand right now, and both negotiations are being made, whether it's Chelsea or Arsenal. And Inter Milan are having to deal with it and figure out like which one's going to go. I would be very surprised if they both left, but they are different types of forward. Lautaro's got 2 years left on his contract, hasn't so far been shown too much interest in improving those deals or those terms or extending the deal. So we'll have to see what happens there. It's hard to just predict something like that, but we'll see at the end of the week where we stand.
I suppose it all depends really on how bad this financial situation really is at Inter Milan. They're never going to tell you it's as bad as it really is. No one ever does, do they? Do you know what I mean? You can meet someone who's, on the skin of their ass, and they'll still tell you they're all right. Do you know what I mean? So it'll be interesting to see. Maria Williams here, back again with a super chat, says he went into training and spoke to the manager, though he didn't just not turn up. I know, Maria. I know he didn't. I was being a little bit, as in Romero, I was being a little bit facetious.
Oh, okay.
There we go. Tottenham Hotspur fans will hate Harry Kane now, is what Tottenham Hotspur till I die. Listen, Spurs fans might not like him right now, but if he doesn't leave and he scores a hat-trick in the opening day of the season, they're going to be thinking he's one of our own again. Straight away. Keiran here says, I would gladly be a stepping stone for Lautaro. With him at number 10 and a right back, we could challenge the European football.
I think that's a really good point. I really do. And I think that Arsenal realise where they are in like the food chain right now, because they're not in the Champions League and they're not where they are used to being. And so one of the things that they've been able to sell themselves is kind of that heritage and tradition, and the fact that they will always be among the elite, even if they're not top of it. They're thereabouts, and they're not right now. And said many times on here that they've basically gone fishing this summer, targeted loads of different players to see what lands. Can they get a Sterling? Can they get Mahrez? Can they get Odsonne Edouard? Can they get Tammy Abraham? Can they get Lautaro Martinez? Who wants to join Arsenal right now? And he's right. Like, you have to accept, like, if we're going to be a stepping stone for Lautaro Martinez for 2 years, then fine. But it could be that Lautaro Martinez is the player that's been missing that pushes Arsenal back into the Champions League. And Lautaro Martinez will love being that guy. And maybe he falls in love with Arsenal, or maybe he ends up staying, or other people end up joining Arsenal again. And suddenly you've got a real team on your hands. That's the fun of this. That's what comes with being a fan. That's what comes with watching this game season after season after season. It's that you don't know what's going to happen, and the cycles change. You know, Man City won't be the leading team forever. You know, Liverpool waited a long time to get back on top of the pile. Now they're already chasing their tails to get back in there, and Arsenal's time will come again. So it just takes that one deal that gives you that breakthrough, and you look at the influence a player can have. Say Bruno Fernandes, for example, at United, like what that transfer did for the football club, what it did for the team internally.
Yeah,
can spark something, you know, and I think that's what Arsenal are looking for now. They've got those fundamental players there. They need the one that's going to spark things. It should really be Aubameyang. I don't know what we're getting from Aubameyang at the moment, but if it's not him, then let's find somebody else.
No, I totally hear that. I really, really do. In terms of the midfield area, you know, James Maddison, Bissouma, Neves have been the three real big names that they've been linked with in the middle. There may be Awar, I might be missing one because, as you say, they've been fishing around. With Granit Xhaka looking like he's signing a new deal, would it be a fair assumption to make, or maybe you've had this briefing directly, that it's more the creative midfielder, so the Awar, the Maddison they're going to go after, as opposed to a more sitting Bissouma, Neves role? Because I can't see where that player fits in with Thomas Partey, Xhaka, and of course with young Lokonga that they're going to develop now. Would you say it's more likely to be a creative midfielder they focus on now?
Yeah, it definitely is. Yeah, and that's why, you know, Odegaard was obviously a guy they thought they might have teed up to come straight in. It hasn't worked out so far in the way they would have hoped. And now, you know, Maddison's one of the guys that they're looking at potentially to get in there. I mean, their problem, and one of the reasons I've played it down on here, is that Leicester are quite simply just trying to like price him out of the move. They don't think that Arsenal will pay £70 million for him. I think Maddison's been waiting as well to see if anything else came through, any other offers. There hasn't been anything else so far as I know. So we'll have to see like what Arsenal can do there. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money, £70 million on James Maddison, and especially if you throw in 65 million towards Lautaro Martinez as well, because, you know, start of the window, I said, don't be surprised if Arsenal go and spend around £150 million in this window. And, you know, I remember getting a lot of comments like, there's no chance. And then suddenly you get Ben White, 50 million. You're looking at 30 million on Ramsdale, 20 million on Lokonga almost. And you're starting to get towards those figures. If you sign one of these guys, then you're pretty much in that region. Yeah. So to get both of them, I don't know if it fits, you know, the 200 million. So
I think there would need to be a big exit, but maybe Arsenal look at it and think to them, I don't know who it would be, but if they sign Martinez and Maddison, or they can get them both done, you know, you've got to see Lacazette leave as an example. Willock's got to go. Like, they've got to try and raise, you know, at least half of the money for those two players through the sale of individuals.
Yeah.
So that could be the stumbling block here for Arsenal.
Yeah, I mean, and they've tried that. They've tried finding a new club for Lacazette over the last couple of months. And the simple fact is really that Lacazette's not going to get the kind of terms and offer that he's already got at Arsenal. And he likes being at Arsenal. He likes being in London. He likes his money he's getting. Like, he's very content in his role, and he doesn't really want to move. So if Arsenal want him to move on, then they really need to find him a very nice offer somewhere else. And there's no one really that I'm hearing that's going to match that kind of money. So they're struggling to find a new club for him. At the moment, it's really looking like Lacazette will be staying at Arsenal.
There we go. Keiran here says, if Inter sell Lukaku and Lautaro, they would be flush with cash. They could then fleece players from other Serie A teams. They could target lineup.
Yeah, I mean, they could. Yeah,
they could have that.
Yeah, they could, and you know, there are a lot of talented Italian strikers not Italian strikers, but strikers in the Italian league that would fit the bill. You know, you could go after a Dusan Vlahovic or somebody like that, who's being watched by a lot of teams at the moment, and who he's undoubtedly going to be a big name in the game in the coming years. So it's a good point. They could go and do that, and it would help them. They'd have all their finances eased, and they would also have the potential to then go and spend, some of the money on a replacement. But then the problem that you've got, of course, is that as soon as other teams know what someone's just paid for one of your players, then suddenly you're paying a premium on their player as well.
Yeah, it's a knock on. We have a comment here that says Fabrizio and fan channels are trolling Chelsea. Why would they bid for Lukaku and tell the public? I think this is Inter Milan that are briefing the majority of people, if I'm being honest, mate. I don't think Chelsea is telling anybody anything so much, really, on the bid front. Why would they if it's been rejected? That would be my assumption, especially as a lot of the news yesterday came from Italy. So that stands. I don't know how many of these Italian journalists, like Marina's on the phone to, saying, listen, we've got a bid rejected, let everyone know.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think if you think of everything I've reported on the Lukaku situation, it's been from more a personal point of view. I've got insight on kind of what the wages are and what his mindset is, and the kind of in-between ground. And I haven't had information that, for example, €100 million bid's been made. And as you say, that comes out of Italy. And look, the way Fabrizio's worked through his career and the way that he got his platform was because Italian clubs and presidents and the owners are much more open about briefing journalists on things like that. Like, I've known examples of journalists literally getting text messages from people in transfer meetings at football clubs. There's like 4 people in a room discussing a transfer, and there's been a journalist literally getting updates about who they're talking about. And people are like, this is crazy. Like, in England, like, it just doesn't work like that. You've got to work really hard to get the information, and you don't get the same sort of information, to be honest. So it's a very different culture in Italy in the way that they report and they get transfer news. Sometimes I'm envious of it. Sometimes I'm not, because people like Fabrizio have worked extremely hard to build the contacts that they have. As I do, like, how much respect the guy deserves for all of that. But on the flip of that, we get information here in England through other contacts, through agents, through intermediaries, through maybe our clubs. That might be a little bit different. It doesn't mean it's wrong. It just might be a little bit different. And it's all about painting the overall picture.
Yesterday was a prime example. You had Simon Johnson from The Athletic and Matt Law talking about Lukaku. I mean, you spoke about Lukaku a week before, and it was interesting when you spoke about it a week before. I know you know Simon Phillips and the guys over there at the Chelsea pod. They were sort of like, okay, it's not really an update. We always discuss what we're going to share and put out. And they were like, it's not really an update. It was just like a conversation. But actually, it turned out to be very pivotal what you said. But it's only when other pieces of news, sometimes, as you say, the overall picture click in place, it makes a bit more sense. Do you get where I'm coming from? It was like, that's like, do you get where I'm coming, especially when you work back. But like, they put the stories out yesterday. They didn't say Chelsea are about to sign him. They said Chelsea are going to bid for him. And people's response was, Fabrizio said he's not for sale. Yeah, both those things are true. But this is the thing. A lot of players that get purchased are not for sale. This season, as an example, Jadon Sancho wasn't actually for sale. He wasn't on the transfer list. You had to work a deal out for him. And Lukaku's very smart. I thought all summer, Christoph Torreira said this, Sasha Tavalieri, yourself, Peter O'Rourke, everybody. He's going to say he doesn't want to leave. And then if he does leave, he's got the perfect PR spin. The club are struggling financially. I'm falling on my sword for you. I love you. It's the perfect exit. He leaves a hero. He does. It's brilliant. Manchester United, of course, excellent summer so far. A lot of talk still about midfielders and Trippier. Is Pogba staying and going? What's the latest news as far as you're aware coming out of Manchester United and Old Trafford?
I mean, it hasn't been a real focus in the last couple of days, but I think that obviously the Saul Niguez thing is one that's coming into the domain now, and the fact that his agents are clearly trying to drive a move for him into the Premier League and for him to get out of Atletico Madrid. There have been frustrations there, and I think that Liverpool and United are 2 obvious places to link him with right now, and a good starting place for them to go and try and push him into. From a United point of view, they've they've had interest in him in the past. There's no doubt about that. Were they expecting him to be available right now? I'm not so sure. So it might be that this is an opportunity again, like Varane, that becomes too good to turn down. But ultimately, you then also compare that to the guys they've been talking to, say Camavinga and Ruben Neves. And I think you're then pushing into the next bracket when you're getting Saul Niguez. And what that means as well is that you're looking at more financial upheaval, well, not upheaval, but you're having to push more into the deal. Whether he's, I believe, one of the higher earners at Atletico Madrid. I know that obviously he's got that release clause, which is 100 odd million. They're not going to get that, but they're still saying it would be 50 million euros. And you're like, okay, so 50 million euros. How's that fitting in with what Man United's done already? They've still got Kieran Trippier deal to be done, which still will probably happen. Is Pogba actually leaving? Probably not, no. So is there need to go and spend that money right now? I'm not convinced about it, to be honest. Like I do still think that they're working on midfield options, but it has to be a good value deal, and that's what United have been working on. If you think of what they've done in the past couple of years, they've been working on good value deals. It's the opposite of what they were doing when they were signing people like Alexis Sanchez and just throwing money at stuff. Like, the club had to change its culture, and they have. So that's what you have to realise. Like, if Saul Niguez is to become an option, it has to be a good financial option as well as like fitting in with their playing style. So let's see. Let's see how that opens up. I think that they had to wait for the Varane deal to be sorted out before they could really start to switch their focus. So maybe things will start to change.
No, I totally agree. And I want to speak about Kieran Trippier for a moment, if possible. But just some breaking news just out from Alistair Gold that no return today so far from Harry Kane at Chelsea's pre-season under Nuno, and the club understands. Sorry, here it says here no return today for Harry Kane to Tottenham's pre-season training under Nuno, and understand the club have not been made aware of when he will return at this stage. So Harry Kane, it looks like he's away again today. This is, in fairness, it doesn't involve my club. It's quite exciting, quite enjoy it. When Sky have got presenters stuck outside the training ground, you know it's going to be enthralling. Kieran Trippier, there's a lot of talk about him. He's returned now. He's back in Spain, but he's still looking to kind of push this move forward. Any kind of updates there? Are Man United trying to make any further inroads into Trippier?
Yeah, I think it'll be. I honestly think this deal will be done. Don't have any new news, but Trippier is confident that Atletico Madrid are working on finding a replacement for him, and that as soon as they are far enough down the road that that's being clinched, then that he should be able to negotiate with United about what's going to happen there. So yeah, again, it's just about patience, really. I mean, it was never a priority for Man United to sign Trippier. I can partly understand why they're doing it, as we talked before. Like, are they trying to be more tactically flexible? Are they looking to build like bonds within the team? But you think, like, when they signed Aaron Wan-Bissaka, they were very public about the way they'd gone about signing him. And what did they say? It was like there was a list of like 800 players or something that they looked through before signing Aaron Wan-Bissaka, and it felt they made him sound like he was an X Factor winner or something. And like, if he was, if he'd seen off all that competition, why are they now signing a right back so soon afterwards? And then it doesn't help that you've got people like Charlie Austin talking very openly about the fact that Wan-Bissaka can't defend. So interesting one, but I do wonder what this means for Wan-Bissaka if United do actually go and sign Trippier. At first, I thought it was just competition and stuff, but yeah, now I'm wondering if there are a few doubts about Wan-Bissaka, so it'll be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly will be. I'm certainly up for the competition. There's no doubt about it at all. A lot of Chelsea fans asking throughout the course of the show about Haaland. Now, we know that there's Jules Kounde is a deal that Chelsea are looking to get finalised. There's clearly some issues Sevilla's end with whether they want, with Zuma. Does he want to join? Is he going to go West Ham? There's a lot of talk that Chelsea will just up the cash if that doesn't happen. So it feels pretty much in a good place to be completed. But the Haaland deal is one that they've chased all summer. Do you see this fizzling out? Do Do you see this as a question? A lot of you must have seen this on socials. People are thinking that Lukaku is a smokescreen of some sort to tempt Haaland out. Do you think a bid will go in this week for Haaland, or do you think that's it now? Chelsea will give up that pursuit and go full in for the Lukaku's, Kounde, and potentially still a Declan Rice move?
I mean, I don't think it's a smokescreen, Lukaku. We've been quite open on here, the fact that they've been pursuing both throughout the summer, because Haaland was always a bonus if you were able to get him. We're talking about that like almost priority queue jump, if you like, that was on offer if you were willing to pay a 100 million premium. And even if you were willing to do that, like, you had to be given the reason to believe that it could actually all go through. And it's been complicated by the fact that it hasn't quite come through as far as Chelsea hoped it would by now, I think it'd be fair to say. Borussia Dortmund will be closing the door at the end of the week because they need to focus on the new season. Erling Haaland knows that he has so many options open to him next summer. Man United, by the way, becoming quite excited about all this and the fact that Haaland might still be on the market next summer. Let's see how that one grows, if indeed he is still at Dortmund, because they want to be in that conversation massively. So yeah, Lukaku's not a smokescreen, and Haaland is, as it stands, looking unlikely. It doesn't mean that Chelsea aren't going to, have one more chat to see whether it could be done. But there's been so much focus on Lukaku in the last 2 days that it would seem strange to put all that effort into something that you didn't expect to happen. As for Kounde, I think that Chelsea have been quite smart on this one. They showed interest in Raphael Varane, and it became pretty clear to them that the player wanted to join Man United, so they didn't waste any more time or energy on it, and moved on to their other targets. And with Kounde, they quietly moved on behind the scenes to see if the player was interested, and Kounde was interested. He wants to join Chelsea. Knows the personal terms will be fine. They've just got to strike a deal. They've just got to find a way to get him to Chelsea now, and it probably will happen. There's reasonable confidence in it. And then there's Declan Rice as well, which just hasn't really materialised yet. I think Chelsea were definitely put off by the fact that West Ham threw £100 million price tag on him. Chelsea have always seen it as more a 60 to £70 million signing if they were going to do it. Declan Rice has been excited about the idea of going back to Chelsea. There's no doubt about that. But as it stands right now, he's not going to throw his toys out the pram and demand a move. He's a level-headed guy. He knows that if he continues the path he's been on, he'll be fine. Big season coming up for West Ham, though, and probably one of the only reasons that Rice is agitated right now is because West Ham have been so slow in the transfer market and haven't built on where they were at the last season. And they got that European qualification, and so yeah, as it stands, Declan Rice is a West Ham player and will remain so. And Chelsea obviously have to put attention on Lukaku and Kounde for now, because they're deals that look like they could actually happen. Maybe it comes down to that last week of the window and they're like, right, let's give it a bash. There's nothing to say that won't happen, but I think for now there's nothing there.
Well, if they end up, if those rumours, I mean, it depends what rumours you listen to with Haaland. There was all that talk a few weeks ago. I had some conversation with a few agents that I'm familiar with that said that they heard these rumours that sort of a 130 plus £20 million bid were being looked at. Maybe Chelsea have put that in informally, and just Dortmund have said no. If they were willing to spend that on Haaland, then and you pick up Lukaku, and still they were looking at doing Declan Rice. If you then pick up Lukaku for 100, as an example, you then might, that spare check, we're not going to be going for Haaland next year now. Let's throw that money and some into Declan Rice. It could, but that striker option has always been, I've always felt, has been the priority position for them. The Kounde deal has obviously reared its head, and again, I'm told by yourself and Pete that it's pretty good. I spoke to a friend and contact of mine in France who's been a little bit more not forthcoming. He's like, it's just sorted. Sevilla just sorted themselves out. Trust me, Terry. I might have trusted him a bit too much, to be fair, and got a bit sick for it. And I've learned. I'm like, all right, I'll just hold back a little bit next time. I might just delay the news, drag it out a bit longer. But yeah, I keep messaging him every day, going, bruv, what's going on? He's like, trust me. I'm like, I'm trusting you. This goes wrong, you're off the Christmas card list. But, I'm new to this game. I don't want to kill myself already. But like, for those updates, Keenan here says, if Trippier comes to United, could AWB be converted into a deep lying DM with his physicality progressing and athleticism? I don't see it. I don't think he's good enough on the ball technically to do it. Let's see what happens with AWB. You might find that Trippier comes in and we get the same reaction out of him that we got from Luke Shaw, and that would everybody, including England fans, appreciate, or maybe Congolese fans, because he may decide to play for a country of his heritage. Michael here says, love the channel and the insight. You aren't too bad for a United supporter. That's me, of course. I know a lot of people call Dean a United supporter, but he does support the mighty Fulham. PS is blue. And Haaland is Chelsea's, is what Michael believes. Listen, as a Man United fan, I know you touched it very briefly. I am desperate for Chelsea. If they're going to sign a striker, of course, I want them to sign Ings or someone of that level. But if between Lukaku and Haaland, they sign Lukaku, my confidence levels of getting Haaland next year increase, because suddenly there'll be no English team with the ability to get him, especially if Kane goes City. You're then only looking at the two big Spanish boys, really, and financially we might be in a better position than them. But it will be a massive race next summer, no doubt. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very, very much for tuning in. As always, some major updates that have come in today about Harry Kane, about Lukaku, Grealish. The Martinez one was a little bit of a steal for us as well. A bit of insight there for the Gooners watching. Paul Ross here says it's all crap. He's deliberately running down his contracts to go to Real Madrid or Barca. What was the quote again? My dream is to play for Barca and Real Madrid, is what Paul Ross says. Absolutely, maybe it is, but they can't afford him. He won't be going there. It's as simple as that. Do you know what I mean? I don't think halfway through last season Martinez was considering going to Arsenal, but he may be there right about now, Ross. But Mr. Ross, thank you for that super chat. Everyone who's tuned in, a massive thank you to each and every single one of you. Sign up right now to our notification group chat. The link for that is pinned in our live comment section, and along with all our other social media accounts is in the description below. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Goodbye. God bless. And we'll see you all again